Hello, internet people, comic makers, artists, writers, uh, I don't know what else you would be. Today I wanted to talk a bit about how long to make your webcomic. Like, what are we shooting for here? And maybe some advice that's like contradicted like my previous advice. So, I am a writer of comics. I have four series, two of which I never talk about anymore, but I recently reread them and I find them very endearing now instead of embarrassing. So, my first comic I did when I was 16. Well, I started it when I was 16. I think it took me 5 years to finish it. And it totaled like 400 and something pages, I think. And then my other comic was Pretty Mouth, and it ended up being 250 pages. Then I have my ongoing comics, which are kind of like spiritually linked to the original two. So I have the Magpie, which is currently sitting at, I don't know, actually, I have no clue. Let's go with 400. Let's say it's sitting around 400 pages. It is swiftly encroaching on sovereign territory. And then I have the Books of Avo, which is a novel that I am doing in a vertical webtoon format. And I don't know how to count pages on that because they're so spaced out. That is something that I've never considered, and it's definitely something I should consider because I know a lot of you work on vertical comics. But I don't think the numbers matter too much, like precisely. What's being worked on right now, right here, is the Magpie, which is the one that's like 400 or so pages long. And I bring it up just because I am finally getting back into it. And I think that's partly what has been getting me to really think about how long to make comics and what it means to make a long comic. Just because it's been a long time. I recently like checked back into Magpie basically. I think some of you used to read it, and it took a big long hiatus, and that had to do with like a lot of reasons. My advice, like my general advice, always, my beginner advice, if you are starting into comics, it's to make something small, make a project that you can finish in a year. For me, like that's like 100 to 200 pages. That was reasonable at the time. Your mileage may of course vary. A year is just like a good amount of time because, barring like certain circumstances, obviously, not too much changes in a year, at least compared to like other amounts of time that you will be working on a comic. And I kind of say that just because, like, when you first start out working on comics, when you're doing your very first one, like, you don't really, it's hard to fully recognize and quantify like the amount of time it takes to make a comic, especially by yourself, like a lot of you are doing. Like, it takes an exceptional amount of time and effort to put out any amount of comic work. And if you've never done it before, going straight to the big boy comic is just not, it's not the most advised like strategy, because like it feels nice to finish things. I think is a good part about it. It's like it feels nice to have comics under your belt and you learn a lot through them. I'm happy with my first two comics. It took me a long time to be happy with them, but having space away from like Pretty Mouth and Sovereign, I kind of love them. They're so endearing to me, and the fact that people still like them, like I can feel I can feel it a lot more. But there are some like drawbacks too. And I think that's what's been on my mind, because I'm always saying to like start small. But like, do I advise that you continue small? No and yes. I don't know. Like, it really depends. All of it depends on what you want. But there are a lot of like issues with having a smaller comic, and the main one honestly comes down to like audience and audience retention for me. Okay, that is one of the main ones. I think the other one has to just do with writing in general and just how I think about it. I'll get into that after this point, I guess. But like, when it comes to like audience retention, audience growth, it is exceptionally hard to shift an audience onto another property. Like you'd think it's easy, but it's not always. And it's especially difficult if you're trying to shift them onto like a different property. Like even your favorite creators, like I have so many like comic creators I love, but they've moved on to new works and I just haven't looked at what they're up to. I guess some people put out tons of like small works, and I think that can work out for you because that in itself is kind of like a greater project, I guess. But when it comes down to like having an engaged audience, it is very, very difficult to move on to the next one. So like when I first started writing my comic Pretty Mouth, I got it done quick. That was my goal. I wanted something short. I wanted to finish something because Sovereign was taking a very long time. But yeah, I completed Pretty Mouth very quickly. I just wanted to get something done to really level up, I guess, and to really get through something. And the product ended up being very rushed. The same thing can be said about Sovereign, and it's a little different. But like with Pretty Mouth, I moved on to the Magpie, and the Magpie is like a prequel comic. So I didn't think that it would be so difficult to shift my audience onto the new one, but it was. And I think a big reason for that was the fact that, for one, it wasn't a BL like Pretty Mouth was. It was something completely new, and it was a new property. Like, and if you want to go even further away from what you usually do, like the further away your new project is from your old one, like the harder it is to transfer your audience over. Like I can feel it strongest, honestly, on YouTube, I guess, where I have my YouTube audience, and like understandably, it's very hard to shift over you watchers to go read my comic, and I don't fault you for that because I don't love reading comics. I like making comics and listening to like nonfiction, so like I would be the kind of listener who would not read your comic, so like that's a thing. And when you have a short comic, you build up an audience and then you kind of lose it, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And that is kind of like my main consideration nowadays when it comes to making deciding how big I want things to be, because for me, like finishing something hasn't been as important to me anymore, so much as like making something and building a community around that thing. So like with the Magpie, I've just very slowly gained an audience and I've slowly put out books. I had a big hiatus, which has very much interrupted my readership, which is understandable, but there's still more readership for it than starting a new project completely, because I've also just started posting the Books of Avo, which is like a completely new property on the webcomic scene thing, and it does not have the readership that Magpie has, even though Magpie is like not super active. And like that makes sense because like over time, like you build up your community and you build up like trust. And right now my audience doesn't trust me to update, which is fair because I haven't in a long time. And I guess that can be the issue of having something long, I guess, is what that goes into. So like when you have something long, like you can have an audience that builds around it, and it can be pretty okay. Here's my other dirty little tip is if you are working on a long comic and your readership dies, you can just delete your comic from the internet and come back with an insane buffer and reboot it in a way. Like there's no laws against that. Like if you look at Webtoon right now, like I think Avatar is being posted on it, and that's like a graphic novel that came out forever ago, right? The Last Airbender graphic novels are just being webtoonized. If you are working on a long comic and it falls flat, like you can do it again. Like you don't have to do any work, and you can just start posting a regular update while you work on catching up with your buffer. It works. It is one way to do it. And I guess the reason that I know this is because like I always will like move over to new things, to new comic sites, and just start like posting like my old work. Like I'm reposting Sovereign, I think, on Comic Fury. You know, that's a thing to do. Can't stop me. There's so many people that like they're gonna find it. I've gone off topic, but it, like it does remain like a negative in terms of like hiatus and like actually seeing a project through, because like if you've never done a small comic, and this is why like I always recommend it, is like if you've never done a small comic, again, like you don't know how hard it is. And even if you do a 200-page comic and survive it, even if you end up doing the 500-page comic and surviving that too, no matter what, like nothing can really prepare you for it. I was doing great with comics. I was keeping up phenomenally well. And then 2020 happened, and I've just been through like a mental health thing for 4 years, I guess. And now I'm coming back, and it's fun, it's cool, but you can't plan for that. And like cracking open my Magpie script and seeing my due dates of like 2021 as like I was gonna be finished this, but like you can't plan for that sort of thing. Like you can conceptualize that making an 800-page comic is going to take you 8 years, like 100 pages a year. I can do it, but like what happens in those 8 years? 8 years is a lot of time. And I guess some of you haven't even considered the possibility that 800 pages will take you 800 years. No, like that'll take you like 8 years if you're lucky. But it is a thing, right? And I was thinking that for those of you that have like a magnum opus that you're working towards, like I think a good idea might be, if you don't want to do a long comic, like maybe do like a pilot. Do like a pilot for your comic. Do like a test run. Everyone wants to rewrite their beginning chapter anyways, so write your beginning chapter, see it through, and see if you can sustain that for the rest of your life, because your comic is 2,000 pages long or something. I don't know. Yeah, I think a lot of it is like I've done a few videos, I think, at this point where I just like am shouting and saying like, your comic is too long, your comic is too long. And it's true, your comic is definitely too long. But I think when I say that, I'm kind of like pointing out that your comic is longer than you think it is, and the amount of work is bigger than you think it is going to be. But like once you understand that, like I don't think there's anything wrong with long comics, and I think that like there's a lot of advantages to doing them. And like with the whole like aspect of audience building, like it can be very frustrating. Like I find that, and again, like it's hard to say advice on this because of how long comics take. Like I started posting my comics when the internet was like vastly different. Like it changes so fast. I think like Tapas like just came into like existence around the time like I was starting, but like it took like 300 pages for like both of my comics to really like get any sort of like meaningful interaction to them, which is wild to think. But yeah, no, I think that's like been the case for like all 3 of the comics that I've been going at, where it just takes a really long time to get attention. I don't even think it's necessarily about getting attention entirely. I think it's about like earning trust. A lot of people don't want to read comics because like don't want to read like a new webcomic because it is an unknown quantity. Like they don't know if this is going to continue past its first update. You know, I think like power readers will read a lot of beginning chapters and bookmark them, but I think a lot of readers are like looking for something that has some substantial amount to read and invest into. And when you have a shorter comic, like you're gonna have like a lot more of the kind of audience that checks in like for that one comic and then just never comes back, which is like why I really do focus, like in general, like I focus on doing longer form comics. And like I've really been trying to look more into like episodic content a bit more, and like having more sub arcs within my stories. And like another part of it is just like, I don't know, like okay, one thing I notice about comics, especially going from writing like a novel to writing comics, is it takes a lot of pages to really get the pace of something. And it takes a lot, it just takes a whole bunch of effort to really get the pace and really slow things down enough, while also trying to balance the fact that you want things shorter. And like I've been working on the Magpie, right? I went back into it, and I've been working on rewriting the later volumes of it, because it initially was gonna like end kind of soon. Like I had like 2 volumes written. Now I don't know. Now I don't know when it's ending, because like I really just wanted to flesh things out a lot more, because I have a tendency to rush the ending just because I get bored, I guess. And I don't want to do that. I want to like actually give it time to really breathe, I guess. You can see it a lot looking at the Magpie, like the first volume of it, that I write at a much quicker, more disorienting kind of pace. And I think that's kind of like what happens when you try and condense things a lot, is things get very disorienting. The only way to really counteract this is just to make your scope a lot smaller. It's to delete characters. You can do that, or you can just have a really hectic, hard to follow comic. But if you really want to make things slower, it's better to like get rid of larger chunks of content than it is to try and squeeze the pace in that way. And I decided that I want to do neither of those things, and that I like updating the Magpie. I like updating it. I like reading what people have to say. And like I don't have a reason to not say things and update and give it the space it needs, because like, you know what, like it'll take as long as it takes, and if I never finish it, that's life, man. A lot of comics don't get finished. That was something like I used to worry about all the time as a young beginner little guy, but like I do not care any much more. I'd love to finish things. I think it's great, but focusing entirely on having an ending, like there's so much more to a story than the ending. Reaching an ending is kind of like a very small part of a story. That's definitely something I've learned as a writer, is that the middle's where all the stuff happens. So, and like, I'm not advocating that like you stretch out things meaninglessly, but like I would just say, like, if your comic is gonna run long, just let it run long, honestly. Try and finish something if you are a beginner. Really see if it's something sustainable for you, if it's something you want to work on. And my other advice on long comics, choosing between long and short, how long, just make your comic bad. It doesn't have to be amazing. If you are one person and you have to make 800 pages of comics, not everything has to be perfect. You just need to get your thoughts across. If you want to tell a story, if that's what you really, really want to do that. Add backgrounds, make things beautiful. And if that's all if you want to make perfect pages, go ahead. But you can just make one perfect page per issue. Like 1 out of 10 pages is good, and readers will like it. That's what I've learned, is that I don't know, man. I don't know how to explain this, but like if you have a good story, like just tell the story and don't stress yourself too much about it. Like don't try and create the Scourge of 9 Point, which is my other comic that I didn't mention because I don't know how I could physically finish that one, but we'll get to it. We'll get to it one day. But right now we're focusing on the Books of Avo and the Magpie. And like Avo, I have a beautiful product I already sell. I wrote it as a novel and I got these beautiful watercolor illustrations of it done by my lovely wife, who is drawing currently on the screen. But like we decided to do like a webtoon version and it's bad. It's good. It's really pretty. I like it. But it's not the best art ever. It's wonky and it is messy, but it gets the job done. And I really just want to share my story with people, and I don't want to just put out 3 beautiful books and then never interact with anyone or never talk about it again. I just want to share, and that is why I love long works. The Books of Avo, which is again like the novel that is being turned into a webtoon, 1920s, dragons, gay, smooching, whatever. I've been working on that since I was 12 years old, so like I don't want to just put out 3 books in however amount of time. I want a comment section. I want to update. There's something so beautiful about updating, guys. I love it. It fills me with so much joy. I feel so much joy updating YouTube. I feel it updating my comics. And I haven't done comic updates in forever. And really getting back into it, getting back into just doing comics, because like, as I was saying, like 2020 sucked for the first half. And now I'm really getting back into things. Yeah, it's crazy. And yeah, I guess a lot of my perspective has changed on a lot of things over the years of working on things, and it's nice. Anyways, so speaking of like audience conversion and never updating and all that stuff, check out my comics on Tapas, basically. You can check it out on Webtoon, but like Webtoon like censored me. Like I just somehow, okay. This is like a bugbear. Magpie, horrifying comic. Terrible things happen in it. It's a horror comic. It in the very first scene, there's like a child that's like beat up, right? It's a black and white comic. It's fine. My child abuse opening has stood the test of like 10 years. My first update on the Books of Avo on Webtoon freaking immediately taken down. Probably because of the vast quantities of blood. So if that if that sounds cool to you, like yeah, check it out. It's fun. It's like me. If you like my vibe, maybe you'll like my books. If not, that is fine. Just like the video. That's cool too. Like, just watch comic videos, hang out on our live streams, and just do all that fun stuff, and like, it's cool. I haven't been doing Monday Fun Day in a bit, and the reason for that is because I just don't have anything new. I haven't been working on the project that I talk about on Monday Fun Day. I had a bunch of world building videos, if you, and I just haven't been working on world building. I've been like actually writing stuff. I actually started writing Crow Story. That was crazy. I wrote the first chapter of it, which is really cool. And then I've been working on the Books of Avo book 3, working on draft 2 of that. And then I got really into editing Magpie, and hopefully eventually I will have more stuff to talk about. But at the very least, I'm trying to keep up with one video a month that's a topic like this one. That's kind of my goal. My goal is one video from me, one art video from my wife. That's the other person who's on this channel. And then an update of Magpie and an update of Avo. And if I do those 4 updates, bing bang boom, I'm set for life. I'm happy. And hopefully you're happy too, and like you don't feel like you're missing me. This video is going on way too long and I don't want to edit it. I'm gonna make Ursula do it. Let's see if Ursula's editing it. If Ursula edits it, she'll leave this little bit in right now. If not, well, I guess you wouldn't have heard it. Alright, I'll see you guys in the next one. Actually, I won't, because I just told you that Ursula would be doing that. I'll see you in the next one, or in a live stream. Yeah. Alright, goodbye.